The most successful people in the world all have one thing in common. They've learned how to think big by developing a perspective of possibility. And the good news is, we all have the potential to apply the same strategies to achieve amazing things in our work and lives. Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and as your Chief Possibility Officer and host, I'm here to inspire you to become the star of your world as a person of possibility, through learning how people from all areas of life are thinking big and chasing down their dreams. And this month, I'm continuing on with our previous session, talking about the 638 philosophy. 638 is a philosophy I've developed after working with, studying, researching, me-searching is what I call it, what high-performance people do. Those high-performance possibility thinkers who go beyond growth mindset, who have what I call a possibility mindset, and that they're able to repeat their success and scale their success, even if they change careers, change sports. They're able to have a system and a process. And 638 are the 6 principles they have, the 3 strategies they employ, and the 8 practices they do to achieve success. Not every time, but in the end, they are successful. So 638 is what we started with in my previous podcast last month. We talked about what I call the possibility mindset Super 6, the Super 6 principles. And the 6, I'll just repeat those for you, and those who may have missed the podcast. The 6 principles they have are, they are purposeful, big thinkers, firstly. So if they're going to think, they think big, but they're very intentional and purposeful about it. They're insanely curious. They really want to understand and deep dive into the detail. They're very action orientated. They go and do things. They take that knowledge. They don't just hold on to that knowledge. They take action. They're very process driven. They have a process for doing things, a process for creativity, a process for art, a process for sales, a process for acting, a process for building a business. They're grateful and they're optimistic. They're grateful for where they've got to. They're grateful for the help they have, and they're optimistic about the future. They're very positive people. It's not blind optimism, but they have an optimistic view of where they're going. And you must have that if you're going to have a possibility mindset. And the last of the 6, which is the 6th one, is they love to have fun. They have fun while they're doing it. And when the fun stops, they stop. So they're the 6 principles. The 3 strategies they employ to make things happen are what are called the 3 R's. They reimagine possibility, they remove obstacles, and then they release potential. So they're the 3 strategies. We have our 6 principles. The 3 strategies are they reimagine possibility, they think what could be. They then remove obstacles, because there will always be obstacles in the way of possibility. And they want to release potential. So what potential has been held back, and how can they release that? And removing obstacles and releasing potential can actually be done at the same time. They can be run in parallel. So that's what we covered last time in the podcast. I'd now like to focus on the 8 practices. And the 8 practices I remember easily because I like to do this to make things simple for myself. I use an acronym, and the acronym is CHAMPION, right? So I call it my CHAMPION process. And the CHAMPION process is the practical side of things. These are 8 practices that I'm sure you do, some of these or all of these, maybe the whole lot, but you may not do them all the time, and you may get them a little mixed up, and you may do some sometimes and miss out on others. But what I've noticed is these 8 practices really bring things together and allow possibility to work, and essentially take you from potential to performance. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about winning and being successful. Doesn't mean I am every time, but I really want to aim for that. And so this allows you to go from all that potential to actual high performance. So let's jump into the CHAMPION process and talk a little bit about that. The first part of CHAMPION is the letter C, and C stands for chunk it down. So when you have a big goal, it can be overwhelming. When you're looking at possibility, it can be overwhelming. After a while, you get excited for a little bit, but then you fall away. So chunking it down means let me take something and break it down into small parts. If you study anything from what Google has done, Google has what it calls its moonshots, which are the big tasks it's after, the big, hairy, audacious goals. But they never just have moonshots. They always associate a roof shot with a moonshot. And roof shots are those little shots you take, like if you're playing basketball and you're throwing the basketball into the hoop, which is say on your garage, that's called a roof shot. Right, so you're having a roof shot, just we do that, that's a small shot. So lots and lots of roof shots make up the moon shot. So that's how Google enables itself to get to these larger, bigger, big scale possibilities. And in fact, Google has a saying in there, they like to develop a pipeline of possibilities. So that's the way they do it. My good friend Alyssa Camplin, who you might know, is a gold medalist and bronze medalist in skiing. Alyssa has a fantastic process where she chunks things down. And when she wanted to become a gold medalist, because she didn't actually have a sport that she'd really chosen, but when she decided to get passionate about downhill skiing, she actually had like an 8-year plan, chunked it all down year by year, and actual by discipline and skill set, mindset and tool set that she needed to have in order to become a gold medalist. It's a really nice way of chunking things right down. In a year one, her first one was learn to ski, because at the time she didn't actually ski. But at the end of that period, she did actually win the gold medal. So chunking things down. And the third reason why chunking it down works is the brain loves you when you chunk it down. When you can give it small things to do, that little bit of starting the journey. It's so important to do it. Also, I recall a story working with some people who are base jumpers. You know, the people who jump off buildings or jump off high mountains and then kind of like just jump down, then the parachute goes open and they float down towards the bottom, hopefully. Well, a lot of base jumpers, how they start is actually just jumping off a small ledge, like a gutter or a little step in your house, because essentially jumping off is exactly the same. It's just that little step, and they get used to doing it just in a small environment rather than doing it from the mountain. So chunking it down is the first one, that's C. And that's a really important one and will definitely help you get on your way. So any big goal you've got, chunk it down to a small step that you can actually take that's manageable. The next one is H, and H stands for have a go. You've got to do something, right? So having a go is really important because action precedes passion. You can't get passionate about anything until you've actually done it. You actually have to do something. I'm quite passionate about yacht racing and sailing, have been for many years, but I had to do it before I knew I was passionate about it. You can't just imagine being passionate, right? You actually have to do something and go, actually, I really enjoy this. This is really good, but you got to take action. And a great quote is from the actress Scarlett Johansson, who said, I've made a career out of being rejected. Rarely have I been the first choice for any role, but you say yes and you put one foot after the other and you have a go. And so just doing that, putting yourself out there, having a go, applying for a new job, changing your career, going to a webinar, listening to a speaker can actually help you start to make that transition. So having a go is really important to take that next step of action. The next one is A, for assess results. Assessing results is really important. What are the metrics that matter? So have a think about what are the results you're going to actually look for or manage. Could it be an activity? Could it be the results of that activity? What are the results that you'll know whether you're on track or off track, or whether you're succeeding or you need to improve? There's a great quote by Jim Barksdale, a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, and he has this quote, and he says this: if we have data, let's look at data. But if all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. And I love that quote from Jim Barksdale, who's basically saying he's a data head. I want to see the data. Tell us where I'm succeeding. And he funds a lot of businesses and he wants to do it based on data, not just opinions. And because he's a major shareholder, typically he said, if we're just doing opinions, well, I'm going to go with mine. So think about what are the data we need, what are the data points we need to look at. Another thing to think about in data points is when you're looking at data points is actually look for not only where you're not succeeding, which is a very natural thing for humans. We like to look where we're failing and see if we can fix it. You can do that, but a better way is in fact to look at where am I succeeding and how can I get more of that. So look at both the positive side and the dark side. So where are we not doing so well? Can we sort that out? Can we fix it? Or actually, where are we doing well and how can I do more of that? I often get asked by teams I'm working with, they say, our team's not doing so well. Can you help us motivate them? Can you help us inspire them? Can you come in here and sort out, why their sales might be down or what have you? And the first question I always go to a leader is, where is it working? Do you have any salespeople who are actually above target? Do you have a state or a region that's doing better than anywhere else? And 9.5 times out of 10, they'll say, oh yeah, there's this group of people over here, or this particular individual, or this particular region is doing really well. And I say, great, let me talk with them because I want to know what they're doing differently, yet they're in the same environment. Gene Simmons, one of the co-founders of the band Kiss, was really good at doing this. So Gene would, any venture he ever had through Kiss or the merchandising or other ventures he went into, he would always focus on the upside. Where are we doing well? What's working and how can I get more of that? He would actually not focus on the downside. He'd focus on the upside and say, that's what I need to get more of. It's quite an empowering way of looking at it. So again, the A is for assess results. We then move into the M. And M of champion is mindset maintenance. And I like mindset maintenance, or have a think about mental fitness is another way. So again, like physical fitness, we know we can train our bodies to be stronger. Mental fitness is all about training our brains and our minds to be fitter. And I kind of like mental fitness versus mental health, because mental health, I feel like it's something that's happened to me, whereas mental fitness means I can be proactive about that. So mindset maintenance is all about that side of things, because you will run into obstacles, you will get challenged, you will have people who will say it's not possible, you can't do that, you've never done it before. That you will just have that. So you need to be able to bounce back from that. And so what you're looking for is not really high waves and then deep troughs where you're up and then you're down and you're up and you're down. You want to have like ripples where you know you're going to have some downside, you know you're going to be challenged, but you also can rise to the occasion as well and realize that you can get through this. So when I start talking about the mindset maintenance stuff, there's some really interesting ways of doing it. One of the great ways to do it is to think about this quote, which is this: I became more successful when I stopped listening to myself and started talking to myself. Let me pause on that, right? I became more successful as soon as I stopped listening to myself and I started talking to myself. So affirmations, visualization really do work. And another thing that works well is having what we call the Stockdale paradox. And this came from Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war. And he said that what happened was the prisoners of war, they kind of went into three camps. There were the crazy optimists who just believed they were getting out tomorrow. There was the real pessimists who believed they were going to die the next day. And then there was this other group, which Admiral James Stockdale led. And they were the people that had a belief in success combined with a deep acceptance of the current harsh reality. So they accepted where they were, which is not great, but they had an absolute solid belief in eventual success. That's a great way. That's called the Stockdale paradox. And it's a great way, especially in tough times, to go, hey, you know what? I can accept where I am. I get the reality, but I have a belief that I'm going to move forward and get out of this. And so mindset maintenance is really strong way of thinking about how do I get to eventually where this thing is going to be possible, but I know I'm going to run into obstacles as I go along. One of the strong ways you can do that is the P of champion, which is hang out with great people. Surround yourself with great people. Surround yourself with people that support you and encourage you and help you. Move away from the naysayers. Move away from those people who just suck the oxygen out of your life. Move away from those people who just are always negative and down. And sometimes they might be family members, and it's going to be tough for me to say that. But sometimes you need to spend less time with them and more time with the people that help you and encourage you. So on the people side, that's one area, is to hang out with the right people. But also to think about the philosophy of who, not how. So when you think about doing something, don't just think about how am I going to do it? Think firstly, who could help me to do it? Who actually is doing this already? Who could actually think differently and help me on my way? Too many times we think about the how and we struggle. When if we think about the who first, it's much more successful. One of the great iconic film franchises of the last 40 years has been the Mad Max series. And the Mad Max series really started with Byron Kennedy and George Miller really taking on that philosophy of who, not how, right up front. So when they were about to make the very first Mad Max, which was made on an incredibly low budget, they thought to themselves, we need people who've made a movie before or a feature film. They had made many movies before individually, but they'd never made a feature film before, which is going to a whole new level. And so they realized what they didn't know, and they employed this who, not how, in terms of the casting, in terms of the camera people, in terms of directing, in terms of scaling this thing and getting this movie produced, which went on to become a huge movie. And you can see it's very early days when they made it. It's got a phenomenal ROI, by the way, and led to a great franchise. But they actually deliberately employed the strategy of who, not how. The other side of who, not how is that if you're with the right people, if you do anything in sport like cycling, swimming, for example, or running, you probably know the app Strava and the saying that says, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. Well, one of the things about Strava, it collects tons and tons of data every year. And one of the things they've found that around January 18th, 19th of every year is what they call Quitters Day. And Quitters Day is they start to see all the data that spikes around New Year's Day starts to fall away big time by about January 18, 19, as people go, oh God, I can't run anymore, I can't cycle anymore, oh my God, swimming's really hard. And so they get excited for a New Year's resolution and then it falls away. But what they've found is the people who are training with other people or training in groups or cycling in groups, for example, while they might fade away around January 18, 19, within a week, they're back training again. And that's because people help other people. They'll get that phone call. Hey, we didn't see you for the ride this morning. Hey, we didn't see you down there for a swim this morning. Hey, we didn't see you with a kayak this morning. So your colleagues and friends will encourage you and they pick you up and help you. So training with a group is really important. It can actually make sure you get to where your goals are. So that's the P for people. The next one, the I, is investigate world class. And I'm coming to you from Australia, so oftentimes we can be quite focused just in our region. But actually, when you're doing anything, find out what's going on in the world. Where's world class? What are they doing? What are they doing differently? Because if you think about investigating world class in anything you do, you'll have a much greater mindset. I know several entrepreneurs, more than several entrepreneurs, who deliberately and intentionally travel the world every year to go to big conferences in the US or in Hong Kong or in Europe. And they go every year because they want to benchmark themselves. They want to know what's going on from a world-class perspective. And yes, you can do so much stuff online, and yes, you can attend these things virtually, but there's nothing like being in the room and networking with people and seeing what is really going on right at the coalface, right where the real trends are being happening. So every time you're about to do something, investigate world-class. I've always loved, through my cycling and through my sailing, to work with world-class coaches, those who coached at the international level or coached international athletes or worked at the Olympic level, because they just have a different perspective. So that's I. So we've covered champion right now from C, H, A, M, P, and now the I. The O is all around owning the outcome. Own the outcome. Now, I want you to own the outcome, whether you're successful or not successful. Owning the outcome tends to be thought of, let's own it when we fail. But I can tell you, Australia especially, we have this thing called a tall poppy syndrome, which is we don't like to celebrate. We don't want to say it's a big deal. Well, I want you to throw that out the door. One thing the US I found does better than anyone is they celebrate successes. So you should be looking to celebrate successes, the small wins, not the big wins, the small wins. When you have a win or an improvement, start to look about owning the outcome. This is a really important part. So celebrate your wins, celebrate with your team, because then you know what winning's like and you want to have more of that. On the flip side, if things stuff up, things don't go so well, then own the outcome of that as well. But language is very important here. And I was talking with an entrepreneur recently, and he told me that one of the things that really helped him was when he changed the language and he moved away from the word failure and changed it to setback. And I thought, wow, that is fantastic. He moved away from failure, but made it setback. And he said, I haven't had many failures, but I've had some setbacks. I've had a bit of a setback here. This is what I'm going to do about it. And it's a really strong piece of language. A setback sounds so much more doable or recoverable than failure does. Even that kind of language. So I like to move away from the word failure as well to experiment and learn, right? Rather than try and fail, right? A lot of people say try and fail. It's experiment and learn. Or not failure, setback. So think about the language you have and it'll make it a lot easier. A lot of people own the outcome and it's a positive thing as well. I recently was listening to a podcast with Jared Leto, the actor and musician, and he said when he's acting, he spoke about this. He said, my job on set is to serve others, bring kindness and be prepared. I need to know my lines, know everybody else's lines and bring as many ideas as I can to the team, knowing that I may well fail and fail often, but that's okay because it's all in the service of getting the best outcome as a group. And I really like his attitude about that. So again, he's more using the word failure, but he's talking about a setback, knowing that I'm going to bring ideas along. Some will work, some might not work, but we're all in this together to get the best outcome and the best movie possible for the audiences that it's intended to. So that's O for outcome. The last one is N. N is our last letter in the champion acronym. And N is for never give in. Never ever give in. If you're focused on this particular goal and you know what's possible, you keep on going for it. And I want to give you 3 examples here, which I think are fabulous, and hopefully they'll inspire you to keep on going. The first one is from a musician, and the musician's name is Prince. And I'm sure you've heard of Prince, and you've probably heard of Prince's song. One of his biggest hits was called 1999. And one of the reasons you've heard it so much is because, yes, it's got a lot of airplay, but it didn't just get airplay. Prince released that song no less than 5 times until he got the recognition and the airplay it deserved. He didn't release it once and hope. He released it once and it went okay. When it started to get traction in the UK, he released it again with another B-side. Then he put it on another album. And then he put it out again in 1990, around 1998, 1999. He actually put it out again. So he did 5 separate releases of promotion to make sure this song got out there. Prince also did the movie Purple Rain. You may have heard of it. He didn't do Purple Rain because he wanted to get in the movie business. He did Purple Rain because he realized that movie soundtracks were really successful. And he thought, well, I can write a movie soundtrack. I'll write it to my own movie, Purple Rain. And therefore he exposed his music to more people again. So again, Prince was some person that just kept on, was persistent about getting the kind of recognition that he believed his music was should have got and deserved, and we all know those songs. Another example is Airbnb. Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, said they launched Airbnb no less than 3 times. Right? So they did an official launch, a big official launch 3 times, until one of his team said to him when they were going for the 2nd and 3rd time, hey, Brian, we've kind of already released Airbnb twice. Why are we going again? And Brian's response was, well, no one's buying it, so clearly no one's heard of it. So let's keep on going until they actually know we've launched. So again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If you believe in it, you've got to keep on going. And the last one is one I came across recently, and this was by a lady by the name of Kaylee Amstutz. And Kaylee Amstutz, you're probably going, who's Kaylee Amstutz? Well, in 2011, Kaylee Amstutz put on her Instagram, I am going to be on Saturday Night Live. I am focused and I'm intentional about being on Saturday Night Live. And in 2024, in November this year, she was on Saturday Night Live launching her new single. Her stage name is Chapel Roan. And Chapel Roan, as you know, and you may, if you don't know, please look her up on Spotify or on Instagram now, or on YouTube, or anyway, he's probably one of the greatest singers right now. Real flavour of the month, has been around a while, but really pushed hard. And I just love the fact that she must have been such a young girl when she put that out there saying, I'm going to be on SNL in 2011, put it under her real name. And then here we are, 13 years later, and she's now on SNL launching her latest single. That's what Not Giving Up's about. So never give in. And she's had plenty of setbacks, more than I can go into on this podcast, plenty of setbacks, but also has never given in to what she believed, and she held authentically to the music that she wanted to produce. So that's the champion process, and that's the last part of 638. So 638, easy to remember, isn't it? So 638, 6 principles, 3 strategies, 8 practices. That's what we do. Detail is important. All the people of possibility that I know of, and I've studied, and I've even done this kind of work myself, and I've gone beyond what I think I could ever achieve. There's lots of detail. There's lots of work in there. There's more than a one-liner. There's more than a soundbite. There is the detail. But I've hopefully tried to bring this together for you in the 638 concept. And you'll see that with the previous podcasts that I've done and the ones that are coming up with my special guests. You'll get to see that all of them in some form have used 638, and I'll keep on coming back to that to remind you which parts they've done. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast of 638, the second part of the series. So the last one was last month. This is the current one now. If you've got any questions with it, please hit me up. So you can always email me at rob@robhartnett.com. Please do that, or you can contact me through LinkedIn or my website, robhartnett.com. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. You can contact me at rob@robhartnett.com, or my website, robhartnett.com, or on LinkedIn. Remember to check out the previous seasons and episodes of the podcast and the show notes for more details on this episode's guest. For more inspiration, remember to check out the It's All Possibility playlist on Spotify, which contains a collection of upbeat, positive music I use for inspiration in my live performances. Until next time, live with passion and a perspective of possibility.